There you go.
No, we gotta prove that we did it already. Welcome, everyone, to the July 1st Board of Supervisors Workshop. I'll call the meeting to order and we will pledge allegiance.
And to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And
Right under here.
it says presentation none, so that's not very exciting, is it? Hopefully we did post the updated ordinance. We had a meeting here to just kind of go over some of the bugs that we saw on it. And Kathy, that's what's up on the website right now, is right, is the newer clean ordinance. There's really nothing substantive that changed. Other than like who reports to who, some things that, you know, were incorrect. And I think the biggest change, I would say, what do you folks think? I think the biggest change was that we took out where it referenced how many people constituted an event, because there's so many different types of events, and that really, it really was not a good indicator. So I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, Dave, about.
No, well,
comment?
I can just summarize some of the changes.
That'd be
So,
great.
you know, in the first part of the ordinance is the definitions. And then the definition of a special event. We added in a couple of places that would include fireworks. As Chairwoman said, we removed the reference to 50 persons. So it just says where people are likely to attend. It's one of the criteria. There's a number of criteria here to determine whether or not a special event permit should be obtained. We've specified that addition to fire company fundraising activities and church fundraising activities are excluded.
We're talking about chicken sales, roast chicken.
Right. And there are, you know, a number of definitions, but not every term is defined. So we reference in here with the language in here that says where there is a term that's not defined, you would reference the International Fire Code of 2018 to find the definition where applicable.
And this is primarily coming from that. We're just
Right.
spelling out as much as we can in detail.
Right, under section 8, conditions of issuance, there's a number of conditions. So if you are given a special event permit, there's some conditions you'll have to satisfy. And we added in here under 13, that says compliance with relevant ordinances and laws. And we added including the current edition of the International Fire Code, the West Vincent Township Building Code, and the West Vincent Township Park Rules and Regulations. And we also provided in here that the plans need to provide a plan if you're seeking a special event permit, a plan of your event, and that they will be reviewed by not only the township code official, but also by the police department and the public works department. We also provided in here a little more clearly that a permit will include an agreement to be signed by the permittee and the township, which will require the permittee to reimburse the township for any township costs associated with the event, which could include additional police services, public works services, and the like, if for some reason the police and public works need to get involved. And I think that is pretty much it.
Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially the document that we started with was already covered under the building code. And all of this comes from the fire code regulations for events. Is that right, Matt? Would you like to explain that? Sure. Did you want to come up here at all? Would you mind?
No,
You're allowed enough. Okay.
A little bit of history about the building code and the fire code. They took a lot of the stuff for events out of the building code because it was redundant in the fire code. So they expanded the fire code to include all that, for example, tents and membrane structures and that kind of thing. That's where all that came from anyway, and they were just writing it twice, so they used the fire code.
So we're not really creating a new animal here. We're just isolating it out so it's easier to identify as our events ordinance. Would that be correct? There's really nothing that we're changing that wasn't already there. May or may not have been enforced well, but this makes it easier for us to enforce it.
Make it a little clearer, that's.
Yeah.
Right. For clarity.
Provides a procedure and identifies what is a special event and gives some order to the process.
So, any questions?
Where on the web is this?
Uh,
On the township website?
Yeah, it's where the agenda is. And it's
The
the
Board of
2024
Supervisors.
documents.
Kathy, the Board of Supervisors agendas, right?
Yes.
Right under that. Barry, would you like to take the mic?
Sure, Barry DeLibero, 1012 Pottstown Pike, Chester Springs. Real quick, I tend to have events at my place and there can be 150 or 250 people there. It's never affected traffic. It's never been an issue. It may be a fundraiser. It could be just a barbecue cookout. It can be invitation. People can bring friends. It could be a customer appreciation event. It's never affected anybody. Is this going to affect me?
I think as for our staff, it's not intending to include those that are private events on private property,
Okay.
okay? If you're open to the public, if it's a commercial event,
Well, if it's a fundraiser, the public can come to it.
then it's.
You're inviting the people though.
Mhm.
So, you'd have to look at the definitions to see whether or not it would or not, depending on, there's all kinds of different possible events that you could have.
Well, that's the thing. It seemed pretty vague and these things have to be pretty vague. I'm just telling you. I've never had a problem with traffic. I have all my parking. I'm self-contained. I have no problems. It's never a problem. People, there's no need for police or anything like that. Well, there was the one time the guy had a heart attack. There were cops there for that, but other than that
I don't
one,
think that was because.
Yeah, that wasn't the event. Actually, it wasn't a heart attack. We thought he was having one. But you know, it's things where there may be political candidates coming or something like that. And it's a reasonable question, okay? So, and we've never had a problem with traffic. We've never needed people there for traffic flow. They drive in and they're driving out 5 hours later. They're not coming all in at 2 o'clock. They're not all leaving at 5 o'clock. It tapers in and out. It's just normal course of people driving in and out. I wouldn't expect this to be an issue for somebody like me doing something like this. This is not something where I'm having an event where there's fireworks and there's, you know, jugglers and things like that. We're having a cookout. People are talking. It would be fun, right? It would be fun. Never had a band. We don't have bands. We want people to be able to talk. So it's some,
Food trucks,
what's that?
food trucks.
No, yeah, I'm the guy running the 3 barbecue grill. Well, George Docino's, and he can do some serious barbecuing, but no food trucks, no anything like that, no bands, nothing. So I hope I'm on the outer edges of that because I'm not gonna be happy about that.
Well, it sounds like you would not be
Well-
included in this, but let me
That's right.
Let
There
me
you go.
just say this, that this definition of special event says all temporary gatherings or organized activities of any public or private property or on any street, alley, sidewalk, or private property in the township involving one or some of the following factors. The closing or partial closing of a public right of way, a street, blocking, restricting, or access to a public right of way. So if you're gonna petition to block a street, use of any special effects like fireworks, any other such dangerous display. An installation of a stage, band shell, rolling or movable stands.
Nope.
So you're gonna have that kind of
Right.
placement or temporary directional, promotional, or other signs or barricades on a public right of way.
Nope.
You wanna
Yep.
cordon off the road. Obstruct, delay, or interfere with normal flow of pedestrian vehicle traffic, which doesn't sound like you do. Gathering of people, which sounds like you have, but it has to be more than just that. And a determination by the appropriate township code official designated by the board of supervisors that the event will result in substantial impact to township resources, facilities, or services.
Okay, well, the gathering of people. I think we're all blanketed under that. We're all gatherers.
Gathering of people alone will not imply the special event ordinance. It's
Okay.
the other things.
And
It's the other things.
So Dave, basically, say Barry's unsure and he comes to the township with this event, it would go to Matt and Matt
Right.
would probably say,
Tell you
No
what,
need.
would or would.
right?
I
He would-
follow this, and the only thing I would probably say to you is like, just for an FYI, notify the police, because it's not, you're not interfering with anything else. But it's nice if they know, so that they're closer to the area.
Okay.
Like,
And your ambulance might want to know too.
Okay. And then the second thing, of course, is
Someone,
every once in a while, Ludwig's is very kind to me if I want to do a 9/11 remembrance and we have some balloons there. But I think that's going to be out now because the balloons are going to be there and there may be a crowd of 200 people there or 250 people there. And I can't give you a specific day on that. Like they want 45 days notice. Well, that's out because it's all weather dependent. So we're always in a window there. So unless that can be worked out, we're never going to be able to have the balloons there again because 9/11 is flexible by a couple days.
I think that's allowed for special exceptions too, though.
And says,
You're right, if
can-
you need a range of dates or a rain date or something like that, I certainly understand that, but it's outdoor
Heads up.
events are weather pending, you know?
Mhm.
So it's not that big of a.
Okay. Well, I'll stick my toes in the water and see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Want to come up in?
So, I don't have your most recent changes. I'm reviewing the document from 2020. And I had some comments on the sort of details of that. And they're kind of all over the place. One focus is on the definition of sponsor. I know you have a specific definition, but there's sort of the generic idea of what a sponsor is. And there's a lot of references to sponsors there, which I think will disenfranchise sponsors of the horse show and sponsors of other events. So I'll try to walk through these. Let's see. You said you've removed the 50 or more persons. You've removed that.
As of this draft, let me just be specific.
What's-
We're looking for comments.
Yes, yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, we feel that's arbitrary because, you could
Yeah,
have
yeah,
25 people who are doing something that's really obstructive, so.
And Dana doesn't want to go out and count. your guesses.
Or just a poorly attended event that was supposed to have 200, so it's very arbitrary.
An expert copy of the new version.
Here.
Sorry, it's like.
Oh, not at all.
We didn't know it was there.
We didn't.
We should have had some.
So on for.
Does anyone else want a copy? We can give ours up here. Someone else want another one?
Barney relinquish his, I've been writing.
So just ahead of section 4. There's a paragraph that says it shall be unlawful for any sponsor, owner of the property, person in charge of the property to initiate, organize, promote, permit, conduct, or cause an advertised special event unless the permit has been pursuant. I don't understand the list of people that are, I guess, deemed to be responsible. For instance, my former position was to be the go-between between the horse show and event organizer. And I would then also contact the township about that. If the event organizer failed to get the permit or failed to do something, I don't see why I should somehow be responsible for that, especially as a volunteer. So I don't expect you to answer that. I'd just like you to consider the breadth of who you're throwing responsibility on
It
it.
likely would be under those circumstances, but we don't know now in drafting this ordinance who may be involved with any particular event. So I think we have to have a catch-all like this that would say anyone involved could be responsible, that would later determine like who didn't do what they were supposed to do, or why was this
Well,
event organized without getting.
I don't know if you still have the penalty clause in there, but I certainly wouldn't want to face a fine and 30 days in jail because the event organizer failed to get a permit.
So for instance, Dave, so, say they have an event that comes to them that ends up needing police help. And, you know, we want to charge back for the hours that they, expended. Would that go to the horse show or the event that's at the horse show? I think that's what Ed's trying to figure out.
Yeah. And so I think you need a definition like event organizer and not sponsor. Of course, I understand the difficulty with that with the traditional 4th of July parade because there was no organization for that. It just happened.
Yes, organically. So, Ed, if it was, for example, a country music festival at the Herschel Grant, you must have a contract with the country music festival, right?
Yes.
So it could specify in your agreement with your sponsors or organizers that part of it was they would cover the costs of the township permitting and extra resource required of the township because of the event. That the eventer would do that, not the event owner.
Agree. And in fact, speaking with the chief, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he has deemed that we had the model for how to execute that. In fact, there was a lot of grief going into the first Country Spirit concert. But the promoter and that organization
Right.
cooperated with the police. And what we did was, you know, we said, you have to do this. And we were kind of the go-between to the township. And it was all the responsibility of Impact Entertainment.
So if our ordinance is clear about that, does it take your concern that the event company is who's responsible and you cover it in your agreement with them? Does that take your concern away?
In part, right? There's other dubious stuffs about the use of sponsor that I would like to point out.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me just respond. If you read the sentence, I don't think it's trying to hold everyone responsible. I think it's trying to hold one of those parties who has caused advertise a special event. So for any sponsor, owner of property, or person in charge of a property to initiate, organize, promote, permit, conduct, or cause to be advertised a special event. So it's not trying to say everyone who had anything to do with this is responsible. It's that person or persons or organizations that are causing the special event to be advertised and organized. So I understand there could be multiple people involved, but somehow we got to get to the responsible person.
Yeah.
Who didn't get the permit.
I'm looking at a scowl by somebody who understands this issue and might want to share your opinion about my questions for Ed.
Well, my scout was related to this issue regarding someone who sponsors an issue. Well, the mere fact that I post these personally up on our bulletin board means that I'm promoting everything.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think what we've identified is something to think about. We don't have to dig too much deeper on that. The next thing I want to talk about is this, all applications must be submitted not less than 45 days before the promotion and advertising takes place. So, what constitutes an ad? Does it appear on, an event calendar somewhere?
Or on Facebook or something like that. I mean,
So-
that's advertising.
So the difficulty is something like a dog show, they have to get on the Federation calendar a year in advance.
And same with the horse show. and
Same with the horse show. So, but
those dates are pretty much set. We're gonna know when those dates are coming.
So that means you want the permit a year in advance?
Not a year in advance, but 45 days would be good.
Well, what happens if someone just pops up and, wants to do
We're
something
gonna-
next week?
but
How do we deal with
You
that?
have to have something in there to be able to have time to have.
I guess, I understand you need lead time, right? But to tag it to advertising. And then the question is appearing on a federation calendar an ad? Right? Country Spirit, they were, I mean, they had a lot of lead time with the township, right? And but, they were talking to us 2 years ahead of time.
Right.
And that was premature to do any kind of permitting. In fact, the extent of what they had to do with the township and with the county and with the state really had to be worked out through a number of meetings, right? And certainly anything that grand deserves that much consideration and digging in. And it was like 2 years in advance.
I agree.
But, the people who schedule with us are crazy. We have some community events. We want to do it in June. We can't get it together to do it in June. How about if we do it next week? This is in August. How about we do it next week? Do you have an opening? Now, these are small community events, might have 100 people there, but they're still going to fall under your ordinance. And it's just too difficult. Yeah, it's similar to what Barry said. So the promotion and advertising, I think, needs to be firmed up. And either exclude things like, you're not really advertising it when you put it on the Dog Federation event calendar.
I wouldn't consider that advertising it, but if you know that it's coming, we would hope that you would communicate that to the township saying, we have this event coming up. The calendar that I got from the worship was great. Then now I know all those things are coming. We're gonna have the carnival, and I realize all this, I only just got the permit application right before the weekend. Yeah.
And I now realize I didn't need to file it because I'm not gonna be impacting any public right away.
Well-
The discussion that we just had, I'm subject to this.
Look, that I got the calendar of events is great. That we can work through and talk about and get all this worked out, we'll get there. But that's why you need the time.
I understand the need for time.
Right.
It's what kicks off the beginning of the clock, as it were, right?
I think we can be flexible.
Mhm.
I hope we can be
Well,
flexible.
there was somewhere else in there where it said that it was at the discretion of, of you or us, right? I think if,
If we got time
And
to
it
get
comes-
things
that's
together,
right.
I don't see why we can't make it happen, but.
But
right, and I think we had a shredding event that I don't think we gave 45 days, right?
Yeah, you're not gonna have, what are you gonna have at the shredding event? 200 people over the course of 4 hours or something?
Mhm.
That's not the influx of people where it's gonna be bad.
the township needs some notice of this in order to do what it needs to do.
I acknowledge that, right? It's
So whether
just
it's
examine what the trigger
45
is.
days or 30 days or 20 days or.
I would say
100
45
days.
days before the event and not 45 days before advertising. Right?
Makes sense,
Reasonable.
makes sense.
So a little bit further down, item D in the old thing, so applications shall be made in forms provided, et cetera. First item, full legal names, addresses, and at least one telephone contact number and email address of all sponsors. Now, this is where the use of the word sponsor is problematic. Because we don't know all our sponsors until the end of, and
I might be one.
you might be one. And what's the use of us giving the name and address for Rosado in the application? Or
Are
of,
you referring to sponsors as those that
Cash.
financially supported
yeah,
as opposed to those that are actually
organizing it, right? And that's where I said back in the definitions, we need a better definition because the generic sense of sponsor,
Well, I
It
think,
could be everybody who gave $200.
Yeah.
I think the intent of the word sponsor definition here is someone who organizes
Yep.
Not someone who just
Yeah.
paying you $500 to.
Right, and
Record it.
that's why you may want to change it to organizer or something like that, other than sponsor. And it's because somebody could read this ordinance and not read the definition and be disenfranchised.
The disenfranchised.
Hmm?
Disenfranchised because I decided not to make a donation, a sponsorship.
I don't want my name and address in the public record,
Well, that I agree with.
right? Because, you know, somebody could,
Right, and
freedom of information and know all the sponsors of the Ludwig Colonel Her Show or of,
The dog.
And I wouldn't
Or-
want to take personal responsibility for your event because I gave you $500.
right.
For it, so.
Yeah,
With
so,
you there.
so the theme here is to improve on that definition
Yes,
where people have responsibilities.
looks like Dave's got the wheels turning there.
Yeah, and then a little further down, you know, if there's a partnership, joint venture, a sponsor with like that, all parties, a joint venture shall sign the applicant. So, you know, did you want Citadel Bank to sign and all the officers in Citadel Bank to sign for a Country Spirit? Yeah, I don't think they ever would.
But it's not
That's not the intent, right? Again, this is where the right word has to be employed.
I think, Dave, if we go to person in charge of the property would be, if we looked at that instead of just sponsor, that's who we're looking at, who's controlling the event, who's organizing and doing all that. We're looking for the person in responsible charge.
That you can call to ask
To make
questions.
something happen, if something were to happen.
Yeah, you know, I didn't mind being the go-between between the township and the Country Spirit, but at some point it was Impact Entertainment talking directly to all those parties, and I didn't need to be the middleman. So the person in charge of the property is not necessarily the right concept. I think it's
You want the person in charge of the property and the person in charge of the event itself.
right,
That's
the organizer.
the organizer, that's.
That's probably a better word.
They vote that time.
And in sponsor, it says, who initiates, organizes, promotes, permits, conducts, or causes to be advertised as a special event. It is in that definition. It is in there.
Okay, change the word, right? Because of the generic word sponsor, it's
Right.
going to lead to confusion. I mean, we got the concept, right? You want
Maybe
to,
that should be.
you
responsible
want somebody
party
to deal
versus
with.
Sponsor. What do you think about that? Responsible party?
Responsible charge. Is what you say. Because if some.
Because I think it's sponsors as people who donate.
Right, right, right. You're right. You want to have events, you're gonna need your sponsors. I get that.
Right.
So, jumping further down, item 9 in that list, so security and protection that shall be provided by the applicant. So use the word the security, I changed it to any security. And persons assisting in the control of traffic. And there's a big definite difference between controlling traffic and directing traffic. And I'm not sure what you want there. But we discovered during the Country Spirit, when they hired Flagger Force to manage the traffic on 100, they arrived and said, we can't tell people to go in and out. All we can do is hold a sign that says slow or stop. And I don't know, I guess that's controlling and not directing. And the state manages who can direct traffic versus who can control traffic. And I'm not sure which you want in this
Well,
sentence.
how did we miss getting qualified traffic control people there?
How did we?
We let country music, spirit, whatever.
Nope. Mike pulled a miracle. He contacted,
That was after Flagler Force showed up and he said, these guys can't cut it. And he pulled
and he,
a lot of our police and neighboring police.
yes,
On our nickel because your event was not prepared for the volume of traffic you needed to control. So It
Direct.
I don't care. Is they, how did it happen that your organizers, and let's not call them sponsors, how did they miss up on something that bad? If we had had Matt looking at that, would he have caught it?
The police didn't catch it during the meetings when there was discussion about who would be there.
Okay,
I mean,
we're not looking to really throw anybody. under
no,
the bus
I'm not
who
either,
did
but
Or didn't, but
if you want to say, where would that have been discovered and discussed and corrected? Now, you're talking about people from Georgia and California coming in and knowing Pennsylvania law. It would have been in the discussion with law enforcement to say, by the way, you can't just hire someone like Flagler Force.
well, now we all.
That sounds like a
learned that
learning
lesson.
curve.
But
Hmm.
we would probably not have imagined that they would have done something about bringing in unqualified personnel for such a large, what's it do, 20,000 people there or something?
The odds of anything like that ever happening again are slim.
Yeah, but our job is to worry about the
I know.
odds. So
But
if it's in our event ordinance and our event application, then we don't need to rely on whoever was at the meetings. We have people looking for the checkboxes.
fine. And if you use the word control instead of direct, you might not, you'd end up with the same situation because impact brought in people who could control traffic, but not direct traffic.
So we change that word,
Wait,
control and
wait, wait.
direction.
Don't
I mean, that's what,
word
that's what,
until he explains control and
So
direct.
I
Well, I think
said
it
it
is.
before.
Matt.
Well, but
well, whichever the correct word is, make sure you use the correct word is what I'm getting at.
I think the goal here is that have plans presented to the township, whoever on the township side is gonna review.
Yep.
And see what are you providing here by way of traffic control or traffic direction?
or.
Or what do you need to provide to
Yeah.
satisfy the township?
or Emergency access or ambulances, whatever other things are deemed important to an event of whatever size, or, you have balloons, you want to make sure the fire company knows, stuff like that, so.
So, further down, under maps and details proposed, item D was copies of certificates and licenses for possession and ownership of animals as required by state and federal regulations. That's more trouble than it's worth, not for us, but you're gonna have to put all those on file, and every few years, somebody might want a Freedom of Information Act listing all the horses,
11D,
11D.
under section 5, 11D.
Yeah. So I don't know how that contributes to
Page
the,
5. Yeah, but- Five, you're ahead of them. It's so close.
So-
Make an exception for a horse show.
but so how does that contribute to the public health and safety and welfare of West Vincent?
Matt, you're
To
up
see all
first.
those.
Yeah.
I think the
I
only
think
thing
this
that
is a zoo.
if somebody was to get bit by a
Yeah.
horse or a dog, or they want to make sure. But could you possibly imagine providing all that for every horse that showed up at the show?
Well, that's.
It's not an FBI event. I've worked with them at the show for 35 years. I know the difference.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is more trouble than it's worth.
See, this would make sense if someone was having a zoo coming into a
Right,
school.
or a circus.
Something
Yeah.
like that,
Or-
yes.
If was a
It doesn't make
circus,
sense for a horse show. or-
This to the extent applicable. So when would it be applicable that you would need those licenses?
So-
If it's a petting zoo
If you
coming
were
in,
bringing
or
in a circus, then you
Yeah,
might
okay.
want that information. But
information about
For
lions and
the
tigers?
horses, I don't think is a reasonable expectation. The
Or-
dog show people, they're not even gonna be in their federation unless they had all that
Yep.
paperwork anyway. Almost the same thing with the horse show.
Yep.
Right, they're all
stuff.
certified.
They're all.
So why have it in there?
Or-
Goggins on every.
Because
Oh, because this
okay.
isn't about the Ludwig
What if a
Corner Horse Show, this is
circus-
about everything.
And that's what, like.
Why don't we add in circuits and ownership of animals in circuits?
I think there's.
it could
So
be-
if I may, we were approached by a circus and we told them one of the conditions that will be in the contract is that you provide exactly that,
Right.
documentation on those. So that's what we would do. Now, do you need it in the ordinance? Is anyone else gonna have a circus in
Well, it
Westminster?
says as required by state and federal regulations. I mean, the state doesn't regulate horse shows in that capacity, right? So maybe-
But they require different kinds of licensing.
Right.
So I would just eliminate it. I mean,
I don't
unless
think
you
they eliminate it. I
can
think we
say
have to-
there's some really value to having it in there. Right?
Well, we're concerned about that one event every now and then where we would want this information. So maybe there's a way we could modify that so that's clear.
The petting
More-
zoo at the
yeah,
high
it's
school.
Some,
Well,
we'll have the work on that.
Um,
yeah, we did that.
so I had a couple of the others more here. Let's see what my comment is. So the food facilities,
What page you on now?
same thing, 11, I guess it's H. Isn't that controlled by the Chester County Health Department? They inspect every vendor, food cart. They come inspect our grounds. I don't know what happens off our site. But the health department, at least in East Nantmo, we delegate all those kinds of things to the Chester County Health Department. I'm kind of assuming that's what,
This is asking for it to be included on the map. Remember the context and where we are here.
yeah.
You're
listing it.
providing a map of the event. So that would be where the food facilities are going to be.
Let me kick that. Absolutely. All we want is a map showing where everything is. The only thing that in the fire code that I would go after is the storage of the extra propane tanks. Other than that, Chester County Health Department's going to run most of it.
So for our little Sally horse show, she needs to put in next where the food truck's gonna be.
Yeah, that's all. Take a site map, throw a little box, the food truck.
That's
That's simple.
complicated.
You have a beer garden over here, whatever.
Well,
Well, it's just.
um,
I'm sorry. to-
that's gonna apply to things like Kimberton and Pickering Pony Club when they bring on a food vendor somewhere. And we don't
You're
necessarily.
talking about Kimberton Hunt.
Kimberton Hunt has a horse show.
I get it. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure.
Yes,
Kimberton.
yeah, Kimberton Hunt. And then Pickering Pony Club has a show and they have a food vendor somewhere.
But if it's just, okay, Matt, I'm
It's
asking
just
you, if
making
it's
a
just,
box on the map.
if it's
not-
just one, if they're having one food truck come,
Just show me where it is on the map.
maybe they don't know where they're gonna park it.
Right.
Just, can you just
They're
put,
gonna
there will be one in this vicinity, but we don't know.
You're gonna have a general area where it's gonna be. That's all we're looking for. I'm not looking for an exact location with dimensions. You know, I'm not doing that. That's not a reasonable. If you guys give them a site map and say, draw it here. That's it. Draw the tent here, draw the food truck here, parking here, that don't overcomplicate it. It's supposed to be simple, basic.
Matt, explain why you need that, why even a general map like that helps you.
It's all about evacuation. It's enough that if there's an event that something happens, it's about having enough room for egress to get everybody out. That's the life safety part of it. It's that simple. Is there enough room between the building and the truck or the food truck and the tent to get people to be able to, en masse, move past? That's the way I look at it.
In the abstract, that makes sense. But on 33 acres with one food truck and a 10x10 pop up next to it, you got a lot of ways to egress.
It's never just one food truck.
Yeah,
I
so
understand what you're saying,
and-
and I'm not trying to make it hard, Paul.
Yes, you are.
what I'm saying is this all makes sense for Country Spirit and we gladly go and do stuff like that. But for these tiny things, it's a nuisance. And
A site map is a basic, simple thing. You can give them the site map, they can draw it in. And I'm saying the horse show grounds can provide them the site map, draw it in, as long as I have some idea where it is. And there's enough room for egress. If there's one, we're gonna have plenty of room for egress. If there's 10, then maybe we'll have a discussion.
Can I just say if we're just talking about a small event where there's just one or two of these items, is it more important for you just to know that they're there, just like a list of saying there is one food truck, there is one big tent, so that way you know, hey, go back and make sure that nobody knocks over the propane or something. You know?
It's more too to share with the police department.
Yeah,
and
they
the
know what they're
fire.
going in
They,
to
they
rescue.
know where to go if there's something that happens, which they're gonna be directed to that anyway, I'm sure. But, and they're gonna be able to see it and know exactly where to go, but it helps when there's a general idea of where things are.
Item 16 is any supplemental information the township shall find reasonable, necessary, et cetera. I understand that. And in fact, that's exactly what happens. We get in, we have a conversation with Mike. And he says, oh, we're gonna need this, we're gonna need that, we would like you to do it. But you don't necessarily have that at the time of application. Until you have an engagement and the discussion. Right?
That's why the 30 days, 45 days is important to say, how big of an event is it gonna be? Is it gonna be something where we have 100 people? Or is it gonna be where we have 5,000 people? That's, and so much more of this is worked out in the discussion before the event than the actual, the application is pretty easy and then it goes out before the event. You pretty much worked out the details.
Yeah, it's simple.
I think you've made the application more complicated with some of the things that are listed here. Now, I agree that all this stuff is important in evaluating events, right? But to have it all up front might be burdensome for small or.
Well, I
That might
don't,
not be the expectation.
I don't think that this means it has to be all upfront. I think it means it has to be provided to the township, and then the township says, wait a minute, you're missing something, or wait a minute, we want something more. The application is an ongoing process.
Right.
It's exchange of information. So, and that's where 16 comes in as a catch-all. That's not something you're gonna know when you file your
Right.
piece of paper, but once the township reviews it, they can say, well, we need X, Y, and Z. So it's an ongoing application process.
In all fairness to Ed, that's not what this says. It's under section 5 application. It does state that all of these items are to be provided with the application.
Can that not be reworded to just to say,
Follow up.
as much as you know at that time and.
Well, and no, anything else you require. See,
Yeah.
an application really, when is it complete? Or when can I submit it? When am I paying my fee, right? So I understand the concept and I understand the need for that additional conversation. It's just maybe not put it into the initial application part. Say that, expect follow-up for things.
But if it's on there this way, if you have it, it's all included, I get it done with one look. Which hopefully we'll get to a point where for repeat events, we'll just be recycling a lot of the information. You know what I mean? We'll change the gear and, some things are gonna be all the same. It's just like the first time you do anything, it's gonna be hard to get through it the first time. But after that, it should be very, very, very simple.
Hours of operation, that's way down there. It's above, it's in section 8. I have
All
it
right,
as
page 7.
14. So for our horse show, we have riders coming in at 6. The activity starts at 7. The national anthem is at 8. And, so at 7, we've got the PA system going. As well as the call to the stabling about what's next. So that's difficult for us to do that. And, you know, to start at 1 PM on Sunday.
Well, it says unless advance approval is obtained, so that would be in your application saying,
That's what you.
we need to start earlier.
All right.
And get approval. We're just trying to set some general parameters.
Yeah, I got it.
And that way, if you come and say, we need to be earlier, we understand what your event is versus someone else that may be coming in with something outrageous.
Right.
It may be occurring early in the morning or late at night, and we can say, no, you're not.
Right, right. I mean, we controlled the country music
Right.
when it started and when it ended.
Right.
And,
Just looking at your comment there.
For the most part, except that one time.
So, item 16 there, written approval from the township code official about the adequacy of toilet facilities and sewage disposal. Again, Chester County Health Department, you know, is in charge of
Not for
that,
a temporary event.
not for a temporary event.
No, that comes under me. And it's right on the porta potties, you know it as well as I do, so many per person per.
Yep.
This one.
So why are we even bringing that up? It's, if you expect to have that many people, then I would expect you would have that many facilities. And that's just comes out of the plumbing code too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's written all over the porta potties, it's so many per day.
And again, this,
Do we
you know, this
need
is,
to
this
put
whole thing is not
temporary-
targeted at the horse show. There's other places that might have an event, maybe in a small facility. that
And not have
has-
porta potty.
Right, then they need to have a porta potty because they don't have enough sewage, right?
This paragraph
Exactly. It's not
16
just
would
for the-
say-
For any event anywhere in town.
I understand. Item 17 under public safety.
Okay, the whole, yep, so everything's covered as temporary already. Okay, thank you.
Again, is use of sponsors shall demonstrate.
Where are you?
17, public safety.
So the word sponsor, we might want to again change.
Yeah, I'll go
that.
through and look at all the places
Yeah.
where they can sponsor.
And oh, yeah, so on section 9A, use sponsoring organization, which is kind of a
Mhm.
not defined term. But whatever term you come up with, that's
Right,
what should be there. And
That doesn't affect our individual sponsors.
and so in the model from music world, you have
because you have the red line in
Yeah.
there.
in the music world, you have the promoter, you have an organizer who gets the stuff in the ground running,
Like a producer,
the producer, and all these other sort of roles. And so that's where it might be promoting organization or something like that. I think I might be at the, oh, no. Okay, yeah, so again, now I'm item D in section 10, section 10D1. This is a sound amplification. And I don't know if this has the ability to be appealed at the time of application. Right, the hours of operation we just talked about, sound
It
amplification.
says that the township is authorized to grant access. So wouldn't we be able to change it if we needed to?
Well, that's,
That's a little different.
no, they're granting us authorization to inspect when necessary. Yeah, I would agree that that probably
Need to add
should
that
have
in.
a, you know, unless
Bill-
special permission or.
Yeah.
Same, probably the same wording. as
Yeah.
the previous.
Again, there's a sponsor there. Okay, this is where we're probably violating here, 10D3. No one shall be permitted to remain overnight on the licensed premises except permanent residents unless okay, so
You're okay.
you would approve, okay. Because the, Country Spirit, the setup crew camped. They weren't there during the event, but they were there for the setup.
Beforehand.
For the dog shows, some of the exhibitors come in RVs
Right.
and stay on the grounds.
And carnivals, don't some of their staff.
Carnival, some of
Horse is
them
Stable, right?
go home, but they stay there. No, we don't, for the horse show, we don't allow people to
Did you have
camp.
the horses stable in everything?
The horses are stabled and, we have security, but
This is right.
it's not, we don't let the, barn people stay overnight.
So now that we're gonna be cuddling our horses for the fireworks, would you not permit owners to stay with their horses if fireworks were predicted while you were stabling their horses?
Well, we would
Well, we
not,
don't do them, but they happen next door to me too. So
so,
I'm seeing all of that on Facebook now, so I'm just talking about awareness.
so, I understand the township requires, anyone's having fireworks to notify the neighbors. Correct?
That's a state law, isn't it?
Yeah.
Supposed to.
By the way,
Oh,
the neighbors in West Vincent were notified when someone had fireworks, but uh, the neighbors in East Hampton weren't,
Right.
and the horses went nuts. So anyway, if we were notified that the neighbors were, had a graduation party and were going to do fireworks, and it happened to be when we had the horses on the grounds, we would either ask that they not do that or ask that we allow people to stay with the horses.
Thank you.
So,
That's reasonable.
Right, and I think it's just,
wasn't-
you just
want
wanna know,
To be there if that were to happen, otherwise you're never gonna control
yeah.
it.
but Matt, you just wanna know that there's people that need rescuing in there, or could either, yeah, right, that's what you're looking to know. Where are people that could be in danger?
And if they're staying in the RVs and they have the hookups and all that kind of thing for the other shows or whatever.
You're gonna approve
They're gonna
that,
stand out. We're gonna know that, that's
Right.
all. You know, the carnival people always travel with their RVs. There's always a certain amount of them that stay with the equipment to protect their own equipment.
Right.
so I don't think there's
Again,
anything that
that's the
needs
way
to
that-
change in here, right?
They would let us know and we would approve it.
All right, we're getting through it.
Yep.
Just like we have our residents let us know if they're renting peer-to-peer, they seem, Airbnb or a part of their home to someone else. Now, sometime we'll ask Jackie, how can we find it, our neighbors? But just so you know, we have one of those requirements. It doesn't work for you.
Right.
So, under section of waivers, I just have a kind of off the wall comment. Can we consider omnibus permits or bulk permits for the small shows that are on the horse show grounds?
Omnibus.
It all, good enough.
For all the, we would list the shows that are coming and all these little piddly things are covered under that.
Steve gives us a pretty comprehensive upcoming events.
Yep.
List. Would it have little opportunity to put notes about things we really ought to be aware of for a particular event?
You're talking about like repeat type, the same type of thing that's gonna
Yeah.
happen 10 times. this
Yeah, the
year.
Kimberton
Right,
Hunt show, the Pickering Pony Show, the CLJ shows, CJL
So
shows.
things won't change about the event
No,
structure or the map.
no,
Well, the porta potty may be over
Same
here,
formula.
so over there.
As long as we have the same number, that's not a big deal. Nobody
Yeah.
cares about that.
so, we always, issue, here's what we have for the year, and it's updated, I think, monthly. I think George is sending it monthly. And, anything, we tell every one of them, you need to talk to the township, and especially the big ones, we say, you got to get out in front of the township early You know, this is, someone's talking to us a year in advance, we tell them that, but certainly the omnibus permit wouldn't include them, but it would include the two dog shows and the ongoing small horse shows.
Would you be able to in advance, as part of your omnibus permit, lay out
Which ones they were?
which ones they were and what, if there's anything different about them so that he can look at them and
Right, just do.
Yeah.
improve
Even
it?
if we sat down and took a standard site map. And, okay, this is the way this one sets up, this is the way this one sets up. We're gonna get it covered in no time at all, I would hope.
Yeah,
you
in,
know?
in particular, there's one organizer, one promoter. She has 4 shows, I think. And she actually does everything out of her truck, right? She brings her own jumps, sets it all up, cleans it all out, all that. So it's, for her, it's, same thing. 4 shows in a row.
No,
And so if she could have gotten 1 permit instead of 5 permits, because it's not going to be any different from month to month.
we-
So, just saying, entertain the idea of omnibus permitting for the small events. And of course, anything big, we're gonna be in front of you. Or anything new will be in front of you.
I don't see why we couldn't come up with a process
Yeah.
that would be for your small events.
For Pete, small.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We don't have to reinvent the wheel over and over.
I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel for some of the bigger ones that happen every year, because they don't change them that much either. I've
Right.
been to that horse show for many, many, many times, you don't want to know, you know? I don't think you realize, I don't think you realize. I did the Devon horse show, I used to come up here and drop my brother off to drop off the water truck for you guys for
Mhm.
the last 20 years. You know,
You must be tired of me by now. Julia's tired.
Did he leave anything for you?
Well, didn't you hit everything? You left?
Yes,
something for Julie?
Well, I don't have notes, so.
Okay, come on up.
I never put in notes.
Thank
I
you,
didn't
Ed.
come and I just like free ball it or whatever you call it.
Thank you.
Hi, y'all know who I am. This is gonna be taped, so I'm not gonna say what my address is, Julia Brindell. So I think what everybody here in the township wants to hear is that they're not gonna be prohibited from having anything that they have had ongoing. And that it's not gonna cost them a fortune to have anything that they've been having ongoing. And there was one more thought that I had. And basically that's what I'm gonna say. I mean, there's no reason why we can't go, like Ed's saying, and have an omnibus application. The Ludwig's Corner Horse Show grounds, it's right there in the name. It is a horse show. So how is a horse show even a special event if that's what we are? I mean, that's what we do. I mean, obviously a concert is one thing. Or a big, a big party, or maybe even a balloon festival, but we're a horse show. So how is that a special event?
it's scheduled, it's not every day, right?
It's every year at the same time. Okay. Yes, I know.
I think once we get through the process the first time, we will be able to grind it out after that so easy. It shouldn't be that big a deal. I'm not
Right.
trying to make it that big a deal. But we need to know certain things, like I said, for egress. And, okay, yeah, this year we're gonna have 5 food trucks, next year we're gonna have 7. We can add that in. But like, we just don't wanna have a blanket thing where, okay, just.
Well, I mean, pardon me interrupting. Would it be helpful if you basically had guidelines regarding food trucks, that they have to be at least 10 feet apart and there has to be an egress of so many feet between this and this and this? Would that be helpful to say something like that?
Some of the guidelines for this, I could probably come up with some of them, even for but there's so many, the only reason I don't already have guidelines made up, there's so many variables,
Mhm.
that I don't wanna you know, and I'm gonna coach anybody through to do what you need to do. I get it. We're not trying to prohibit an event. That's not the purpose of this at all.
Okay.
It's all about, as a code official, I swear that I'm gonna uphold life, safety, and welfare of the general public. Okay, you wanna take that responsibility? That's mine. That's what I do. Even enforcing the building codes, that's why we do what we do. Even in an event, it's life, safety, and welfare is what we're worried about. I want you to have a great time. Please do, enjoy. You know,
Just
have a
be
great
safe.
time, just do it safely.
So, okay, because, unfortunately, as soon as when you go and you throw an ordinance up, everybody automatically freaks out. And they're like, this is going to stop us from doing what we've been doing for years. This is going to cost us more money and because we have all of these horse shows and we have a grounds fee, but unfortunately, a lot of these horse shows, if they have to pay exorbitant permitting fees in excess of our grounds fee, they may stop coming back.
So you missed the first time we had a significant kerfuffle about this ordinance, and it's waited a long time to resurface.
See, I'm not the only one that uses kerfuffle. Go on.
Just so you know,
Mhm.
it's not a new concept.
Right.
And we have previously talked to some people from not only the Levin's from a Horse Show, but other places about our need to have this person certified for safety. And we're not trying to do anything onerous. And I've had like a tent on my property for a private event. I didn't ask them because it was on my private property. It did not impinge on parking on David's Lane because I have a lot of space along the driveway, so we're not trying to do something that would interfere with our enjoyment and sharing of West Vincent with our friends and family.
Or Barry's events.
Or Barry's events. I mean, I understand if somebody has a big farm and they decide that they want to have a concert on their farm or something like that, like, yes, that's we definitely, that's something that needs to be looked at because people can do that.
You can have a wedding in your backyard.
Well, you can have a wedding in your backyard or a birthday party or a 4th of July party or something like that. Like, I understand none of that stuff is part of it. But if somebody decides that they want to rent their field to somebody to have the next Country Spirit USA, like, that makes sense. But especially for the events that have been ongoing and for years and years and years.
I didn't have a balloon land at my house. I didn't even get a bottle of champagne they promised.
We can talk about that.
Well, yeah, right?
Take care.
As I said, I think people just want to know that it's not going to change the way that anybody does business and affect the way that people do business. And also having a permit fee is going to price us out because our people that come and rent the grounds are not going to be able to afford to pay it.
This really isn't anything different than we already have in place. We just don't have it clear for everyone to find it.
So it's not going to cost any more money.
It's been buried in
Can't predict.
under
Right.
Under other-
Other 55
codes.
tents for me to go look at, out, the grounds are the grounds, you know? If I gotta go to that many different tents, like, I think there was 40 plus when they did the concert, because I did that also.
we did change the rate schedule for the tent.
Right. I was here for that.
Realized that didn't make any sense at all
Right.
for him to, whether they looked at 1 or 10, it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, I was here for that one.
But some of those administrative costs cover Matt's costs between telephone calls and emails and setting everything up for the permit. So that covers his
There's-
fees.
There, more of the time is invested in that than it is actually going out and looking in the field. You know
Is
what I
it an
mean?
hourly
It's the
rate?
walk-em,
Yes,
it's
And
on
do
the
you-
fee schedule, yeah.
Do you track time sheets so we know how many hours you
He
spend? for
spent well over
permit?
an hour talking to
tracks.
people from the horse show about these tent permits, plus there were emails going back and forth, so.
And everybody was copied.
Yeah, his time was not covered by the cost of that permit, so the township's gonna eat part of that.
And what is the hourly rate?
Not much hourly rate.
I think it's $98 for a, 137 for a commercial. And this would be under.
So you're $137 an hour.
I mean, my concern is with fees also, because for me to put a 20 by 20 tent up for the carnival and my beer garden was gonna cost me $400. $200 for the inspection, $200 is only for the permit, if I understood that correctly, which would more than double the cost for the tent. When I asked for special dispensation, they get a waiver of a portion of that, the request was rejected. So I don't have a tent then.
Okay, Steve, I'm wondering if someplace in here, it probably has something about the discretion of the board. That we get recommendations from our staff over there and over there, but if it's really onerous, we might come and ask the board.
Okay.
Consider yourself asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Get the email
so
first
did you
thing.
just say that you got charged for each tent? Because that's not,
I was only gonna put one tent up there. And just in the beer garden, a 20 by 20, give some people some place to hide.
right?
And because it was only one, I got hit with the bare minimum, which would be the $200 and $200, which is $400, which double the cost of the tent.
And what's the other $200 is the permit fee?
The permit fee and the inspection fee.
Right.
Yep.
Okay,
That's the way
I'm-
it's written.
And there's
I
a
don't believe
$100
it's-
re-inspection fee if it didn't get done right first, just. so
I
you know.
did not know that, but we use, we use reputable tech companies. They come, it's not me out there hacking away at, it, believe me, that would be a nightmare.
and if it's, now I hate to bring it up, but there's the issue of the 400 square foot tent.
Yeah.
Don't bring that up.
Cause that,
Explain that.
is that,
And Matt and I had, we had a
is that under that or?
conversation,
Of course.
and he explained his position. I can respectfully disagree, but I didn't want to get into a pissing match over it.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm just bringing it up because that wouldn't even qualify if, based on the definition, correct?
Well, you're correct. If we interpret that definition exactly as it's spelled out. Matt, however,
Right.
takes the position that consistent with practice, as he's done for decades, that they take into account not just the surface area of the tent, which is 20 by 20, but in addition, the poles.
ropes.
Yeah, the stuff that goes in.
Because it's part of the structure. That's what I've been taught and shown all the way as I started doing, as a code official. That's 20 by 20s we've always looked at. Now,
I think we need to discuss that further because we could have this argument again and again and again unless we actually, like, if that's the way we feel that if what Matt's saying is correct, then we need to write it into our ordinance. Because right now it says in excess of.
Or
Right.
we could ask Matt to do a little more research and find
Other people are
somebody's
doing it that
ordinance
way.
that doesn't include the tent pegs.
So, we had a discussion with the tent vendor for the dog show
Mhm.
and asked him about the practices. And he said, he's not experienced that in any other municipality in Pennsylvania, nor in New Jersey, which he rules, he said a little different, or in Maryland. And I mean, they run tents up and down the East Coast.
what, the tents were inspected?
No, that the area included the staking.
Well, and the other issue too is whether or not it's closed, because if it's not closed, then the measurement's larger.
Right.
Like it's 700,
How much is enclosed? If it's fully open,
right?
or part of it is enclosed. Which is just hanging aside.
Right, and I think this is a really big deal to the horse show because they utilize an awful lot of tents, so, it could come into what
Didn't we adjust that where it was from 1 to 5 or so?
we did that for the dog show and we did it for the,
No, we
yes.
did it generally on the feast.
Yeah, we did,
list, yeah.
Yeah.
but we also made an exception for the dog show.
If you look at what the fees were last year, $50 versus $200. I think that's also.
Mhm. And I don't doubt that the township was losing money on a lot of this. I'm sure that's true, that we weren't recouping our costs, but we also don't want to have Matt doing work that he doesn't need to do.
Well, I
So,
gotta tell you,
so,
if Matt,
Go for it.
if
David.
Matt is your code enforcement officer. And he says that
Mhm.
20 by 20 requires it, I would go with that.
Yep.
Cause he's the one that's licensed and certified to interpret the code, not you, not me, not the audience. It's our code enforcement office. And if that's his interpretation,
11 certification, so.
and if that's his
Everybody looked up.
interpretation, then that's the interpretation you need to go with.
But then I think it needs to be written into here because I think it's
We
not
We
clear.
could put it in
We
wherever
could,
else is mentioned.
we can fix it if that's the concern, but
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time defending something that is not written
well,
that way.
okay.
That's a decision.
That's, it says an excess of,
Mhm.
and the question is, excess of what? The tent plus the ropes or the tent itself?
Plus the stakes to hold it up.
Stakes, the
That's why
whole,
I say it's part of
and
the
that's,
structure.
so it's,
Without the stakes, it falls over.
yeah,
That's why I say.
so he's the one that's interpreting it, that's enforcing it, that has the knowledge and the certifications, safe, health and safety issues.
So you have to go to a more smaller tents.
I have.
Yeah, no, I can be done.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I may be back.
But for
Ed, go ahead.
for you guys to be done.
Yeah, no, that's it's a different topic. So-
It's related.
Okay.
We've had this nice conversation about the horse show, but I'm wondering, what's the problem you're trying to solve generally in the township? Now, I've heard issues about events happening and jamming up roads and disturbing neighbors and stuff like that, but there are other mechanisms to solve that other than a 12-page ordinance.
My answer would be, well, public welfare and safety.
Well, everything's about that. You wouldn't do anything other than that.
Yeah, thank you. That's our job, right?
Yes,
Thank you.
but for instance, I've heard about parking along the road in the village. And I mean, ticket and tow, that kind of doesn't involve, you already have ways of controlling that. So I'm wondering
That's not an
what,
event.
That's
not,
not necessarily an event.
yeah.
right, but when there is an
They're having
event, you
music there,
can,
But right now, it just, in their general usage, I think that parking is an issue at times. But that's not based off of an event, so that
Okay,
has nothing
so-
to do with that.
so what problems are you trying to solve about events? I mean, we're the big
We
one.
want to know about them, I
I
think is the
think
biggest thing.
Matt
Matt, do you have an
answered
answer to that?
Several
Once
times
you get the
tonight.
site plan down, we get it down once. And historically, Ludwig's has been, the horse show grounds have been doing good, especially for the horse shows and dog show. Their parking, make sure the right medical staff is there for whatever, whether it's the ambulance, you know, do they have a fire truck? Do they have enough security? You guys have been doing all the right thing. You're just not always identifying it.
Yeah, right, I've moved away from the horse show, okay?
I'm saying I think Ed doesn't believe that there's other places in the township that have
What if you
events
rent
that are
out Old
important.
Money Park to someone, they don't have a big event down there?
We might do that. We have.
Well, it's the township controls that, right?
Yeah. Sounds
And-
rough.
But how do you, okay, how would you control, it's not just you, and I'm not trying to pick on just the horse show.
No,
I'm saying
forget I'm the horse show.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
what if somebody said, we wanna rent that and we're gonna have an open air concert, and we're gonna blast music till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, it's your property, you tell them no.
yeah, it's conditions of them renting it from you.
But there's other places that can occur.
I mean,
It could be
for
another
instance,
business
we don't
in our
need to
township. that's
Go
doing that.
into other businesses, but when we reviewed this last time, we had a list of 7 or event. 7 or 8, what do we call them? Event organizers or property owners or
Venues.
stuff that we considered. We were not just looking at one.
I understand that. Again, it's what problem you're trying to solve. I mean, in East Antmill, we solve it by our zoning districts. Right? The educational institutional can have special events, ceremonies. And anyone in the ag district can have a special event to support agriculture. But they come in and they have a conditional use hearing for it, and they can only have 4 a year. So, I mean, there are other ways of controlling events.
What's your biggest problem with this ordinance?
It's 12 pages.
Just,
And
I feel that way about the plastic ban, but it's not a reason to object to the whole.
well, I'm not sure what problem is being solved by that. by the 12 pages, right? And I don't know. I don't know what problems you're facing, but I would suggest
Well, I
that
think
you look
it's
at
the
what
thing-
problem you want to solve and bring in the least amount of artillery to solve it.
I think it's things that maybe we don't even know about yet.
I-
Something that has yet to come up. Someone suddenly wants to have a parade in the middle of Bertrandville. You know, I mean, these are the things that could happen that we need to know about and we need to have them organized properly.
Right. And, you know, my discussions with Mike, the chief, he's talked about parades, he's talked about the bike things that come through. And, you know, we've had bike events on our grounds and we've always managed it with Mike, you know, right? They control traffic.
But there's several that come through that we don't even know about, and that's what we're trying to stop. We're trying to stop the things that come through that we don't know about.
So,
Would you say that's true? Like that was one of the problems we had?
Yes.
and you have a way to manage that too. When I, back in the 70s, I was in a bicycle race from Westchester to Philadelphia, Center City. Every corner in Philadelphia had a cop managing traffic. I don't know which.
Can you recruit them? for-
Did they
which-
know in advance it was coming? Because we don't have a cop for every corner.
Yeah, I understand that. So what I'm getting at is somewhere in the middle on Route 3, there's one township that they were informed, they were prepared, they had police at the corner stopping the race. And making people go on the traffic light and stopping the race. So you can't have a bike race when it's like that. So you could also do the same thing. You can stop traffic at traffic lights, and eventually the promoters will say it's not worth it to go to that township. You know, you know, we have lots of good rides here. Right?
Right, but we need to use taxpayer dollars to pay the police to be on every corner. That's why we have permit fees to cover those things.
It doesn't have to be on every corner. You just stop
We
them
don't
at
have-
one or two corners and they'll end it.
Right now, anyway, so it's an issue.
So it's a way to force, if you need a heads up that a bike ride is coming through and you want to know what the plan is and they haven't given you that, you have a way to force them into that the next time they want to do it. Or
Or we can head it off for this time now and say that you don't have a permit to do this
What-
in our township.
you already have that in your zoning ordinance, don't you? You have a special event permit.
You can do that.
The woman who was organizing this bike tour from Jersey for runaway children decided to use state roads and insisted she did not need any permits and she could do whatever she wanted to because it was a state road. And I argued with her that she was mistaken and she had to go through PennDOT. And she just kept coming back and back and back and she wasn't gonna go away. And so finally I had to reach out to PennDOT and say, can you please explain to this person what your protocol is? And he did, and eventually she backed off, but it took 6 months of fighting with this woman to make her understand that what she wanted to do was dangerous. We did not, there's no shoulder on St. Matthew.
Yeah, I get all that.
We couldn't stop it.
So what good, how would this ordinance?
This
not
would
this
give
ordinance,
me the
how-
permission to say, no, she can't do it. Based on safety.
Well, should just ignore it, say, you can't tell me that. State road, it's PennDOT, right?
Not if
She
we
gives
have-
you the same
not if we
argument.
have an ordinance that says she
We can
cannot do it
enforce the
without a
ordinance.
permit.
Because it's an event.
It's, look, we don't live in a perfect world.
Yeah, I understand it, but you have in the zoning ordinance, a special event.
Yeah,
permit.
right. She's not a property owner, something like that. It's not a property owner, so, you know, it's an attempt by the township to try to gain control over these kind of things that may pop up from time to time and be prepared. You know, it's better to be prepared and have the ammunition to take care of it than to do it after a tragedy happens. And there's been tragedies in other places. I think that's the main concern of the township.
And by the way, about state roads over in Bertrandville, if there's a yellow line, it's a state road. So the complaint about parking between Flowing Springs and Schoolhouse is on a state road. So we've been in touch with PennDOT to say, can you help us with no parking controls? But it's a state road. So we're asking the people who can influence that.
But you can still ticket and tow.
That's different, but I just want you to know.
Well,
That we are.
it's the way to influence the community.
Ed, do you think we addressed all of your
trying to solve
concerns?
things one bite at a time.
Do you think we can addressed all your concerns, Ed, other than why are we even having it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess
Well, we'll make changes.
it is, you know, in my profession, I've always said, why are we doing this?
Mhm.
You know, just really, let's reflect on why we're doing this.
Well-
What problem are we trying to
Well,
solve?
I would say that this is something that's been bubbling in the background for a very long time that I guess our chief of police felt we needed, our code enforcement officers felt we needed. There's been a lot of push for this. So I think they just felt like they didn't have the teeth that they needed if something did go wrong.
So I have a question about the next step. We've gotten a lot of feedback.
Mhm.
Dave's
Thank you.
made a lot of good notes. We will, go ahead, Rob. We will have made changes that the public will not have seen. So as our next step, you make the changes, we review the changes. If we think you caught everything we wanted you to catch, then we advertise it.
Yeah, you could post it and have it in another meeting for conversation like this before you advertise it for approval or advertise it for approval. I mean, we might wanna,
Oh, we have a meeting in
Yeah.
2 weeks. Is that
Yeah.
unrealistic?
oh, I don't think so, to have it just not for approval, because you won't have time to.
Right, but it could be up again if anyone wanted to look
Yeah.
at the final version and
Yeah.
have more
Have it.
discussion.
I think,
Hi, Barb Van Horn. I guess I'm confused because looking under your 1 to 7 of special event. Most of our activities don't involve any of this. We don't close any roads. We don't interfere with traffic.
And this is not
So-
about the worship. This is about
I know.
events in the township.
I know, but I'm saying, do our little horse shows have to even file for a permit because they don't fit under any of these 1 to 7? We don't close roads. We don't need police. We don't have a stage or a band show.
I'm not gonna argue with Barb, but.
No, I'm asking a question.
I'm pretty sure.
That would be for our code enforcement enforcer to tell us that. What do you think?
I'm pretty sure.
I would
When
think
Don-
once we get through doing, even if we take the little horse shows that you're saying, and we go through the process once, then we can really determine that, because I'm not speaking that I know every little horse show that goes on out there, because I don't. Yeah, I'm ignorant of that. So once I get.
So I'm
through that-
trying to educate you that we do not close a public right of way. We don't restrict a right of way. We don't have fireworks. We don't have a stage. We don't have directional promotion or barricades. We don't interfere with pedestrian or vehicular traffic. So why do we have to even have those
Okay.
people file a
but-
permit?
Well, number 6, where people are likely to attend,
So you
I
mean,
would hope that they attend the horse show for you.
so you mean
Yeah, earlier.
anything on our private property where people are likely to attend, we have to file a permit? So when we have
Is the
schooling
horse show
sessions,
owned by, who's the horse show owned by? What do you mean private property? It's not your personal property, it's the
It's
horse show.
association.
the association's property.
I'm sorry.
It is the association's property and all of the board. So,
Right. Yeah.
so when I have my schooling sessions, we hope are gonna come to them. They're free for our members.
Sure.
Am I gonna have to get a permit for that now?
No, but if it's just a schooling session where you're gonna get half a dozen people or maybe a dozen trailers and horses and what have you. No, it's a huge property. It's 31 acres. That's never gonna be a problem. But when you get into where you're having over the Labor Day weekend where you have the bigger
I'm
horse
just
show.
talking Labor Day.
Well, maybe
weekend.
we can-
I'm talking our small shows, our small
They're really-
events, where now
Okay.
our people may not rent our grounds anymore. Because they have to give you the name of their firstborn child.
Yeah, I mean, I think
It's
we're just about done.
ridiculous.
We
Yeah.
might have caught something on that one.
That's a shame. We just
Question.
lost our traffic safety presentation.
Poor Ted, he was very
Yes, he
patient.
was patient.
He was the second part of tonight's presentation.
Oh,
So,
didn't know there was an agenda.
well, they gave us one.
No, that's.
So the question while you're educating me, do you ever have to stop traffic on Neville Road or 100 when Don Rosato pulls his carriages?
That
out?
was a big lady horse show.
Right, but
I'm talking the Cheap Chow A horse show. I'm talking about all the other events.
I know,
at the
so
grounds
I'm
that
asking.
give us our income, that now they are gonna have to pay all these permit fees in addition to
Barbara,
renting
I'm
our house.
asking for clarification.
And I tried to clarify that.
Yes,
We
but
don't-
you're pushing back. You
I
said it could have been a yes.
I think that I think it's a valid question that we should look into. And other than, the definition of how big the tents are, that's kind of the only thing that I see, right?
How big the event is too.
Right.
If it's a schooling thing, I realize
Right.
what that is. And how many normally would you have at that kind of a schooling event?
With that, we only have a couple of those.
Well, and
And I have, but I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do think that there's some things that you might come in to say, do I need a permit for this? And just like Barry and his fundraising event will say, oh, no, you're fine. I'm sure that there's some things like that, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
so,
we're putting a burden on the people that we rely on for our income. We're having. You're trying to take our property all over again.
I knew that was gonna come up.
we really should have
Okay,
started with
hold-
traffic safety.
Can I say something? Can I say something really quickly? So just so everyone's aware that doesn't ever go to any of these smaller horse shows we're talking about, you can't even tell they're going on from Route 100. That is how small they are. 95% of the people that are there are exhibitors and trainers. There's very few spectators that go to these shows with the exception of kids' parents and their grandparents. So we're not talking about, there's no rides, there's no games. There might be a food truck, there might not be a food truck. These are really, really small shows. And obviously, this thing's going to get passed and it's going to take a certain amount of time for it to actually take effect. And we're going to have another one of those shows and maybe it would be in everyone's best interest, maybe Matt, for you to come to that show so you can actually see what's going on at that show. So, and maybe we can say, hey, shows of this size do not need to get a permit.
And I probably would attend the first couple little ones.
Yeah. I mean, maybe,
I would come up just to see what's going on.
right.
But isn't that what we talked about an omnibus approach?
That's right. Something like that. So something like,
If it's that small, then that's
That's
what
on
I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
It's been.
But not the bigger shows.
recognized as a good
That's
Right.
already.
right. So that's what I'm saying. Like maybe we
Think
just,
about things like, like the Love Discord Horse Show, the big one and then the carnival, they're the big events.
right. And it's very easy to say right now, because we've already had them year in and year out. It's very easy to say, this is what we're going to require. This is what we need. And then the small ones though are probably things that not everybody even realizes are going on over those weekends because it's so small.
I think they're part of the culture of Western.
Right.
So I don't want to interfere with them. I don't want to make it economically infeasible for them.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm just saying, like,
All this right now, but it sounds like we're all on the same page
Yeah.
with what we want to do.
well, I definitely, no, I don't think that you're trying to stop us from doing anything. I think that unfortunately, I think that it's one of those things that has to happen because things just get tighter and there's no way that as much as we jump up and down, there's nothing we are going to do to stop this thing from going through. But I think we need to figure out how to work through it so that it hurts the least.
Yeah, not to make it so complex where they have to give.
Well, I don't think they're gonna have to. What I'm saying is I think if Matt comes to a show, Matt sees what all the little shows are all about. I think we can figure out how to come up with as I say, this is a horse show, it's horse show grounds. These are horse shows. This is what we do. It's the other things that we need to talk about.
Do you have one coming up that you can give them a date?
I think there's a CJL show in August.
Okay.
I'll give you my card.
So.
I think I have your.
Another thing, horse show is our big fundraiser. So why aren't we excluded like the fire company?
I thought there'd be some discussion about having this.
as a nonprofit? I mean, I don't think we have that in here, do we? We just have it as volunteers.
Grandfather, the
religious.
horse show and the dog show. I don't know what happened to that.
I had thrown that out about nonprofits, but then we said that you can't do that because everybody's a nonprofit. I mean, there's like all these different events consider
But I
themselves
mean, this is
nonprofit.
our big fundraiser.
It is.
So on the small shows, you have to avoid selective enforcement. That's sort of why I was talking about the omnibus permit that was built in the law.
Yeah, I understand.
I realize this too, as you do these smaller horse shows, someday in the future, they may grow into a bigger event. Where I don't wanna just rubber stamp. You know, yeah, would we say, okay, shows up to this size or this many participants, it's not gonna be a problem. But at some time, hopefully they grow into something bigger. For you guys. You know what I mean? Isn't that?
They have it for 80 years.
Doesn't matter to us. We charge them a flat
Yeah.
fee, whether they have 10 horses or 100.
Okay.
But seriously, shouldn't we be an exclusion for fundraising activities?
I think we could take
Otherwise,
that
if I-
question.
Well, that was something that,
advice,
but that was
but
something we weren't sure we
we're
were
not-
allowed to
This
do.
is a workshop.
Well,
We don't make decisions in workshops.
the nature of the event would tell me no, because you have that big horse show has the kind of event that needs to be inspected.
That is our fundraiser.
Okay,
But it doesn't mean that the township can't support you in another way.
Matt.
Okay, so is the Devon Horse Show, and look at how much is involved with that, that all
I'm tired of
benefits
hearing
from our
about that.
hospital.
Yeah, we're not that.
But so why is the
I know, but I have to say it
We're,
that way, because
we're not.
I've been involved with that for 35 years,
So
I
you
know.
guys are.
I know, we're totally different.
The money's
But Dana,
going, to
But
support
then
going.
why is the fire company excluded and churches for their fundraisers?
Well, there's the religious issue on the one, and then the other one is
township.
is
organization.
because there are volunteers.
Quasi township organization.
We're all volunteers.
Different.
Yeah.
Oh, they're,
It's not gonna be
Yeah.
excluded. It's not gonna be excluded. Your event is too large to be excluded.
and we didn't pick that.
It needs to be permitted. It needs to have review. Township needs to do what's right, and what to do what's right is to make sure that it's reviewed and it's safe.
Well, why aren't you reviewing fire company events?
Well, we have a
Make sure
fire
that
company,
they're
we
safe.
have a fire company event that rises to that level. I'm sure we will.
And what's the level? There is no level defined.
Well, should we put the 50 people back in?
Okay.
And don't we assume that they already are adhering to the fire code since they're,
Well, it's
Fire
a
company.
fire company is a quasi township organization related into the township.
So the township can do whatever you want on your
No.
property.
No, no one said that.
that's not our
Well, that's what you
property.
just said.
No one said that.
You
No.
said the fire company is quasi.
No one said that the township or any other entity could do whatever they want. No one said that.
But you just said,
I didn't say that. You said that. I didn't
what
say
you
that.
said is the fire company is a
Can you tell she's
quasi
a lawyer?
Yeah,
township organization.
right.
So then they get an exception here in your ordinance.
They get an exception not to have to go through the permit process. Doesn't mean they can do whatever they want. It just means that we're not gonna permit.
Would they still
We're not
have to
gonna
get
require- We're not gonna.
Large
require them.
tents
If
inspected,
they
right? If
fall,
they
if
had-
they fall within those issues, they would.
Yeah.
Of course they would.
Okay, if they had
Yeah.
issues with
Yeah.
propane tanks and.
So could you notify us somehow when the next version is posted? Because I would have felt better prepared myself had I known there was an
So we
updated
will,
version.
because I just described the steps of the process. It will be on our agenda. It will be on the website posted before a board meeting when we're going to discuss it again. So we will follow our process as previously described. I know you don't like it, but we're going to just follow the book.
Yeah, that's a rude thing to say. I don't like it.
Okay, let's move on. Let's not get
What meeting?
into the weeds.
What
We-
meeting? do you
She's
think?
gonna push, and I'm gonna say, let's do it right, we don't need to rush.
Okay.
So we.
So not
can't-
July, maybe August.
I'm not pushing anything. I'm asking what the proper protocol is,
Well, I need to make changes. I need to get them to the board.
right?
The board is okay with going forward. We'll then publish it. We'll pick a date that we're gonna have them again on the agenda,
Okay,
whether that's 2 weeks from now or a month.
and
from
we
now.
will not have
6
traffic
weeks.
safety doing a presentation at the same time. That is clear.
They get to go
They get to go
first.
first, right?
And perhaps Matt might want to come over and, see one of your events and chat with you on that.
So that they can let me know when these little shows are, so I can
Okay.
see them in real time.
Right,
Steve, you
will we get charged for that?
No,
No, but we probably will.
Good.
So you will as taxpayers. So,
You know, it's a taxpayer, right? And I am living in Sun, but I
Yeah.
am not afraid.
yes. All right, well,
was
is there anything new, Ed, or is there something we can chat about later? Yes?
Did you get a chance to talk to the solicitor about what I proposed at the last meeting? An ag exemption from stormwater management ordinance?
Yes, I spoke to Matt about it, and under the UCC code, the ag definition does not qualify with what you're suggesting. I'll let Matt explain.
I'd have to get the ag definition printed out again, but you're not even close to qualify under ag.
Equine uses are agricultural uses.
I beg to differ. There is a UCC definition of agricultural buildings and structures. That did not fit that definition.
But in Pennsylvania law and court, there are other definitions that include equine.
I gotta go by UCC, Universal Construction.
That's when you're doing the enforcement. The suggestion is within the township's ordinance, it allows for an agricultural exemption.
To exempt stormwater is crazy. You would probably need, if you're talking about doing a stormwater in the ring, you're gonna have to do minimum stormwater and just a sketch for the ring to say how it's gonna go. I mean, it would be, is this for the construction of the new ring?
So, when you plow a field, if it's over 10,000 square feet,
That's agriculture.
yes.
You're plowing, putting crops in the ground. You're not putting crops in the ground.
Anyway,
14,400.
Did you guys-
Right?
Well, this is, we're in comments.
No,
General
yes.
comments.
I haven't
So
looked
somebody-
into the topic yet.
okay, thank you. That was my question.
But could
I'll
you,
send
Okay,
you the
so-
definition.
quickly,
I'm sorry?
could you quickly look into the,
Right now?
oh,
No,
no, not this
No.
minute.
Yeah, we'll definitely get back to you on that. So,
Yes.
we've kind of moved into
Attorney-
public comment already here because our traffic safety folks have left. Is there anything else that? Yes?
I have a question. So regarding the traffic safety and the tree thing,
But we
why,
can't talk about that because they're not here. They have
why is
left.
it even a question? Why can't we just take the trees down?
Their presentation is not here. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to wait till they talk about it. We can't just do everything that they say. We're trying to get an idea of their process and share with the public. So we're
And
not going to talk about it.
potential costs.
I mean, definitely, there are things that our public works folks do anyway, but these are other things that come to us through the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anything else?
Move
to
adjourn.
Second.
So moved. Jared.